Welcome to Nailing the Apex. Adam Wilde, Tim Haraney. Tim just back from the desert this weekend, looking all tanned, and he's got that nice base. You got that nice tanning base.
Tanned or red, Adam?
Listen, Tim, you can qualify it any way you want to. I'll just call it tanned, my friend. All tanned and ready for Miami. You don't even have to get spray tan for Miami, sir. You're ready to go.
Can you see me going to a spray tan?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know what to do, dude. I wouldn't know what to do.
I did it one time, and it's weird because you got to strip down your undies, and then somebody that you don't know is like, okay, I'm gonna spray your entire body with this stuff, and then you got to kind of stand there awkwardly for about 10 minutes. And so I was like, yeah. So my wife encouraged me to do it a couple of years ago, and so I did it, and I was like, this is weird. This is weird.
My aunts did that once, and they came out looking orange.
Oh yeah. You got to go to the right person because apparently you can turn orange, and if you shower too quickly, it'll like run down your face, and you'll be stuck with run marks for a few days.
Dude, I don't get it. So like you're in your boxers, and they're like hosing you down.
Yeah.
Like, well, what about like underneath the boxers? Like, do you get like your butt cracked down and stuff?
No,
like, what
well, I mean you can.
Like,
you can. I know people do. Where like I'm not going to be the kind. I'm not the kind that's in a thong out on the beach. So, if you are showing some cheek, it makes sense, right? Like if you're dropping cheek on the people, you don't want to blot out the sun with that bum, right? You don't want it to be this crazy bright crystal skull thing. But if you're wearing shorts like me, then you're probably okay to just do the boxer briefs and call it a day.
So people came here for F1 and they got spray tanned.
Well, listen, if you need spray tan advice, I am your guy. Okay, I've been there. I've done that. I may not have raced the car, but I've done a spray tan. So same thing.
I'll tell people the desert was fun. We were there.
Where were you?
We were in Vegas, but we went out to, I believe it was called Red Rock Canyon. It's beautiful out there, by the way. Beautiful. For Jasmine, so my girlfriend's cousin's wedding. So it was super nice. Setting was beautiful. Didn't really get after it, Adam. Didn't drink. Did the Irish exit at 10 o'clock. I was a good boy. Wow. I didn't. We didn't tear up Vegas. We went to the Sphere one day.
How is that,
man? It was cool. Like when you first fly into. So I saw it back in November when I went for the Vegas Grand Prix to work the event. And like when you first fly into Las Vegas, like you see this thing and you're like, that's not real. You're like, am I hallucinating? Did I take some drugs on the plane here or something? You're trying to think like what you're looking at, if that's real. But I can tell you what, it is definitely real. The inside of the Sphere is really cool. Getting to your seats is awesome. We were set up in the 400 level, so it kind of feels like you're falling off the side of a building because it's so steep. And the movie was okay. It wasn't great. It was like Postcards from Earth or whatever, and they had a couple glitches in the screen. I think they had a problem with the screen like when we were there.
So you didn't get the full like immersive perspective.
Yeah, because it kind of brings you out of it when you get like a glitch in the screen, and so we had a couple of those throughout it. So it kind of brings you out of the moment. But it is pretty cool. It's worth checking out. I was actually talking to my partner about this when you guys were arguing about it on the SDP.
Oh, really?
When you guys were arguing about, I think it was
Nashville.
What was like a it was like no, it was before that. I was like, what was a bigger achievement, like the pyramids or the Sphere?
Oh yeah. And Jesse's argument was it was the Sphere. We've surpassed the pyramids.
Yeah,
and I think he's nuts. But
Jasmine and I were like, my girlfriend and I were talking about that like while we were in there. I'm like, the guys were arguing like whether or not this is like more impressive than the pyramids.
And Jasmine's like, who are you working with and why?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Is that the person you're yelling to at your computer twice a week? I'm like,
yeah. Well, listen, Tim, we had a great last episode with Gunther Steiner. He's, a fantastic interview always, which is why it's going to be so spectacular that he's made his transition into media, at least for now. But one of the things that he said on the show that really took off was the fact that Nico Hulkenberg going to Audi was the worst kept secret on the grid.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the next morning, Haas and Nico put out statements saying Nico Hulkenberg is joining Audi, and then Nico himself put out a really nice post and thanked Gunther directly, which I thought was really cool to give him a chance to get him back into Formula One. And obviously they're going to finish the season out with Haas, but Nico Hulkenberg has come back and been a real factor for them. He's been great. Interesting timing on all that.
Yeah. Pretty interesting, Adam.
But I think obviously this has probably been in the works for a while. Really important for Audi to get a German driver in there.
Yeah.
But I think less. Yeah. I think people are focusing on that a little too much. Yeah, you want a German driver, that's great. But had Mick Schumacher been a factor in Formula One, Mick Schumacher would be in that spot, right? Because the name and the whatever. Nico Hulkenberg is there not because he's German, but because he's very good.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, he's obviously had a really impressive comeback for the past, obviously this being his second year removed from obviously Formula One coming back. This is his second year in F1 since then. And he's been extremely impressive. And to see what he's doing compared to what Kevin Magnussen is doing, and Kevin is no slouch either. He's a really good race car driver, but he has been kind of blowing the doors off him. So, I mean, it only makes sense. And I think the knowledge and the experience that he brings, Adam, to a team is super important. He's been in Formula One for a really long time. He's been to, countless teams, and to get him in there to help them bring this program along, I think it was the right move. I think he is the right driver to have there in this moment. Now it is a multi-year deal, so I think this goes to about 2027 plus an option is what I'm thinking. That's what they ended up giving him. And we knew about this prior to Japan. I remember texting you about it and hey, Hulkenberg's going to Sauber,
yeah.
So I think we talked about it on the show. Yeah, so we talked about on the show following the Japanese Grand Prix. So it is something that's been in the works for quite a while. I also, Adam, from the German standpoint, I actually think it is important to make sure you have. You have to remember Germany has a lot of heritage when it comes to drivers in Formula One.
Oh, yes.
And obviously, with Michael Schumacher, and I think it's just so important for F1 to have a German driver in it. And, I think Nico Hulkenberg is that driver at the moment. Could Mick Schumacher have, signed up there? I mean, maybe, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it would have worked. I think this is the right fit, Adam. I really do.
And I think my point in bringing up Mick's name is not because I think that he's a Formula One driver, because I actually don't. And I know there's a lot of people that would disagree with that. Most of them probably rah German race fans, and I get that. I know I didn't see enough to see that he could be that. I brought that up because I think people are saying, oh, well, Nico's going because he's German. And I think I brought it up to say if they just wanted a German driver with a big name, that would be the guy. That's the brand.
I hear you. I hear you. I just, I think
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think to round off that thought, it's just, it is important to make sure that, yes, there is a German driver on the grid, but also from the standpoint that he is the right driver for this particular program.
He's steady as she goes. He's worked with teams that need vast improvement.
Yeah.
And actually, I think he's the kind of guy. The way he's racing right now. If he's on a top team, if you put him in the Red Bull car and he gets it, he figures it out. Are his results that much different than a Sergio Perez? I don't know, but it seems like he's racing at a very, very high level right now, considering the the equipment that he has to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's not taking away from Haas. There's a have and a have not in F1 right now. The other thing is, Tim, I think that Nico Hulkenberg has amongst the most German names I've ever heard. Like if there's a name that's German, Nico Hulkenberg would be second to Gerhard Berger.
It's an awesome name, dude. It's an awesome name.
It's an awesome name, and it is so German. It's so perfect.
It's great. I love it. I absolutely love it.
So that makes the silly season part, which has just been going on ever since Andretti was denied entry into Formula One, and Lewis Hamilton decides to move to Ferrari. We had no silly season last year, and all we have had is silly season. And the reason we bring this up is because there is so there's two things, and I'm not sure what to start with. I'll start with Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz has a choice to make. And the choice is, does he go to a team like Red Bull, where Helmut Marko has said, hey, listen, they made him a really good offer, which means I'm pretty sure Helmut knows what the amount is, how many years, and that probably means that Red Bull made him an offer as well. That's what I think. And you can tell me what you think about that, Tim. It's probably less lucrative, but Red Bull's got a better car, and they will probably have a better car for a while. And so does Carlos take the money and the security, or does he go back to the Red Bull program, something that they booted him out of, and he survived it, and go, okay, I want to race in the fastest car and trying to win a championship right now?
Don't forget about Mercedes, because I think, Adam, they also have a sort of a role to play in all of this as well. Toto Wolff hasn't made his decisions, on what he wants to do with that second seat at the team. I mean, for Carlos, it's a difficult situation because he wants long-term stability, and that is extremely important to him. But, now that he's obviously got that taste for winning, and he's not too sure where his peak is. Like, he's not sure if at this moment, is he peaking right now? Or is he only going to continue to get better? So if he's only going to continue to get better, it's difficult to take yourself and put yourself in a program like the Saudi Albert program. Because you're going to be further towards the back of the grid for a longer period of time. Now, I'm not saying that when 2026 rolls around that Audi isn't going to be good. I mean, they very well could be a very strong team, but are they really going to be pushing up against the likes of Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, potentially Aston Martin, McLaren, like when we get to that point of 2026? I highly doubt it. So for him as a racing driver, your career is obviously, I mean, we've seen a few drivers being able to take their career over 40. That's few and far between. And plus they have the staying power and they have, supreme talent, right? When we look at a driver like Carlos Sainz, who I rate extremely highly, does he want to go to that Sauber program, putt around at midfield, or would you rather have a chance at trying to score a victory, score a win, maybe compete for a driver's title? I mean, those things are extremely interesting, because who's to say that, whoever maybe Sauber or Audi decide to put in the seat until 2026, let's just say that it's Valtteri Bottas. And let's say Bottas sticks around, they give him 2025 plus an option for 2026, and let's say Carlos goes to Red Bull Racing for the same amount of time, and then he makes that swap over. Maybe something like that could possibly happen. But I just wouldn't rule out Mercedes at this point. I think they've got a lot more to do when it comes to figuring out if they want to put Kimi Antonelli in that seat. And I think for Toto Wolff, I think he has to understand that, if he is going to either put Kimi in that seat, you're going to have a year of pain. It's going to be tough. Or if you're going to put Carlos in that seat, you have that experience. You leave Kimi Antonelli down in F2 for another year. And then Carlos Sainz doesn't get the long-term stability either, right, Adam? So, I mean, there is a risk that Carlos has to play with all of this, right? And it's like musical chairs, right?
And the Mercedes, if there is an offer there for him, how attractive really is it? It's pretty difficult next year to make up the ground for them to be a championship-winning car. And then there's no guarantees for anybody in 2026. I would expect Mercedes to be at the front of the pack in 2026, or at least, in the top three. But as we've seen, they were, they've struggled out of the gate the last 3 years. They've climbed back into second place, mostly because of Ferrari error. And then now McLaren has surpassed them. So there's no real guarantees here. That's what makes Formula One so exciting. But if you're Carlos, it's like, okay, so I could go to Mercedes, no guarantees there. We don't know. And also I know that they got a stud driver coming up that they're going to want to put in a seat eventually. Yeah. Now he could outrace George Russell, and then they maybe drop George Russell, although that doesn't seem like a realistic scenario. I could go to Audi. I can get my 2+1. Usually that's, for a good drive. I can make a lot of money doing that. I can be the first guy in the team, launching a team or a new brand. That's awesome. Or I can go to Red Bull. But the Red Bull seat, for a couple of reasons, may not be as enticing as it once was. And I mean, the first reason is Max Verstappen's so unbelievably good, and he is a tough guy to be a teammate with, not because he's a bad person, but because he wins all the time, and that can be frustrating.
It's like we had talked about it a few pods ago, where it's like whoever they've put up against Max has never been able to do well, and kind of shatters the other driver's confidence. I think Daniel Ricciardo is probably the only driver who's been able to really go up against Max and actually push him. Whether or not that Daniel Ricciardo of old is still in there, we're still trying to figure that part out. I don't know if Carlos Sainz would want to go to Red Bull and play as a number 2 driver. I mean, because let's be honest, like Sergio, I mean, that's what he's doing right now, right? He is the number 2 driver at this moment. Max is so far out in front, it's not even funny.
Yep.
And if I'm Carlos Sainz, do I want to go and play a number 2? Like, what's in that contract that says that I get I get everything that Max is getting, proper and treatment as well? Like, I mean, there's just so much to a contract like that they would have to work out, and whether or not Carlos wants to do that. I mean, I don't think he would, to be honest. Like,
no, it's and we haven't mentioned Adrian Newey. We will in a second, but if you look at Christian Horner's history, he's never ever treated the drivers the same. He has his favorites. Had Carlos been one of them, he'd still be at Red Bull, right? And people forget how good Daniel Ricciardo was when he was at Red Bull. He was a spectacular driver.
Yeah.
And people forget how many mistakes Max made when he was coming up that Red Bull let him get away with because he had such a phenomenal top end and ability that they just knew it was tantalizing. It was there. It was just waiting to come out. Yeah. But ask Mark Webber how he feels about the way he was managed at Red Bull. Ask Daniel Kvyat. Ask Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly.
Gasly, Albon,
right?
Yeah.
And it's not like it's like, oh, we'll give you a year to figure it out. It's like, no, figure it out within 3 races. Otherwise, Helmut Marko is going to start shit talking you to the media.
Well, that's Nick DeVries, right? I mean,
yeah. Yuki Tsunoda even caught it from Christian a couple of years ago. Remember, he said Max got Yuki Tsunoda in it was at practice or qualifying. Like, that's not an easy program, and it's not like, I'm not saying that Carlos Sainz wants something easy, but Red Bull's so hardcore sometimes. I wonder if it's detrimental to the rest of their team.
I think that's how they have so many good young talents that actually do come through their pipeline, Adam. It's sink or swim. And, the amount of pressure you can put on a driver and have them come to the front and be really strong, that shows you that you do really have something and that they can handle the amount of pressure that is put on them. And Max is that driver, right? Max, being at Toro Rosso. I remember when, was it? I want to say which year was it? It was either 2016 or 2017. We were coming into the Canadian Grand Prix, and Verstappen had a horrible start to the season. It was awful. He crashed into pretty much everybody on the grid at the point. And
he was doing all the things they were accusing Daniel Kvyat of doing.
Yeah, right? But the media was after him. It was very tenacious. And I remember being in the media center, and I can't remember. Someone had asked him, when are you going to stop crashing into everybody like that? It was something along the lines. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And he was just like, I'm getting sick of these questions. And the next person to ask me something like this, I'm going to knock him out kind of thing. And I was just I'm like, you know what? But at the end of that is Max, right? That's him being him. And I think at the end of the day, he knew how to deal with that pressure because he had gotten it for a lot of his career. And that's how he was. And that now we're seeing just, how great he is, right? The much pressure you put him under, he's still going to be great. And so there's not many racing drivers who can go through that program, Adam, and, really survive. It is a very difficult program, but at the end of the day, they end up getting the best sometimes, right? Like Sebastian Vettel,
Yeah.
Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
But they got
Ricardo
8 world champions. They're probably going to have 8. They got 7 world championships right there right now. They're probably going to have 8 at the end of this season, just between those two drivers. So like,
yeah, over what 20 years?
Yeah. So what was Vettel? Vettel was 2010 to no wait, 20,
no, I just
2009.
Mean the team's existence, right? Like when did they switch from Jag to Red Bull?
Was that
2005, 2006?
2006. But it was one of those. And then
so they've won.
Vettel won the championships. What was it? 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. So that would have been. Sorry, I got that wrong. So it was 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013.
Right, and so to win 7 of 18, not bad. It's pretty good.
Incredible, right?
Yeah, any team would take that. Now, part of the reason that they won those is because some guy switched from McLaren to Red Bull in 2006.
So it's a good segue.
Some guy that McLaren, it's funny, being a McLaren fan is sort of like being a Leaf fan because it's like, oh, you've got such a great illustrious history. You also lost the greatest engineer of all time, and you also lost the greatest driver of all time. You know what I mean? Like you developed the greatest driver of all time who won most of his championships for another team. You developed one of the greatest engineers of all time who won all their championships or won most of their championships because they won 2 with Newey, I think. Their championships with another team. Adrian Newey is the guy I'm talking about who left McLaren in 2006 and has been with Red Bull ever since and been developing their program. And what I need to ask you, Tim, is did he in fact resign as was reported?
That's what's been reported, Adam. Like we still haven't gotten firm confirmation from Red Bull Racing whether or not he's leaving or he is staying. But at the moment, all signs point to the fact that he is leaving Red Bull Racing. This is a guy who's been there since 2006. I want to say, but 2006 with Red Bull Racing, and I think for him, a lot of it has to do with the power struggle happening within Red Bull Racing, the Christian Horner allegations, everything that stems from that as well. So I don't really think he wants to be a part of it, Adam. It's not the fact that he wants to go somewhere else to try something new. I think it's the fact that he doesn't want to be a part of all of the stuff that's going on at Red Bull Racing behind the scenes right now. And I think, for him, he's a competitive figure. So whether or not he decides to retire, which he could, right? He could just go and retire right now. Like that's where we're at.
Made his money.
Yep. And, go and sail boats or do whatever, drive race cars, whatever he wants to do. I think for him, though, he's such a competitive person that he'll want to go somewhere else to start a different kind of project. And that project being obviously with Formula One, with these new regulations that are coming on board for 2026, which offers a new challenge. And then it comes down to, okay, well, where could he go, Adam? Where could he go?
So, okay, Tim, give me the 3 top teams, third being the least likely, 1 being the most likely, if he has in fact resigned, because Red Bull said, he's got a contract through 2025. In fact, he might have a contract through 2028 with abilities to end it. Tim, where do you think Newey goes?
Well, I mean, if you're going to go from 3 to 1, I would lay it out Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari. So let's start with Mercedes. When you look at Mercedes and what they've got going on there, you would have to think that Toto Wolff would, want to try and do whatever he could to try and right this ship as quick as possible. Right. And then we have a gardening leave that needs to be put in there as well. And we don't really know how long that gardening leave could be. It could be upwards of 2027 before the time he can actually jump in and work. But whoever comes in and gets him, they're going to want to try and figure out a way of shortening that. And so I think that comes down to paying money. I think that comes down to how much are you going to pay Red Bull Racing.
So you buy him from Red Bull
to shorten up that gardening leave. But for Mercedes, to strengthen that technical team that's run by James Allison, you put Adrian Newey at the top of it, and he basically kind of just oversees everything, and just to make sure that things are coming along, looks at the finer details in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Aston Martin. And I think they're a really interesting fit for him. He's always wanted to work with Fernando Alonso, Adam, always. I think they've also got the newest and latest equipment that he would have access to. Because you have to remember, this factory that Aston Martin has built is brand new. It's state of the art, right? And I think for him, that would be important. Also, he'd be able to stay at home, right? He would be able to stay in the UK, he'd be closer to his family, which is important to him. And so that one is that's an interesting team for me to see him go to. He would be partnered back up with Dan Fallows. Dan Fallows is the guy who's running that operation over there at the moment. Aston Martin's really happy with Dan Fallows. They love Dan Fallows and what he does with the team. It would essentially be to strengthen that technical department, something similar to what Mercedes has going on, obviously. But Adrian would be the one overseeing all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Ferrari. And Lewis Hamilton is a driver that Newey has always wanted to work with. And Ferrari is this team that is just so stuck in a drought at the moment that they are literally trying to do whatever they can to get out of it. Like, bringing in Frederick Vasseur was a genius move. Getting him to bring in Lewis Hamilton, genius move, right? And now you're approaching it like, we need someone with immense talent to oversee our entire operation, and that has to be Adrian Newey. And so I think they'll do whatever they got to do to get him.
Mm-hmm.
I know Frederick Vasseur has been working, behind the scenes pretty hard to also get, the number 2, the Pierre Vacher, who also is a big, big component of that Red Bull Racing. We'll talk about him in a minute, because that's an important figure there. But if they're able to get Adrian Newey at him, I kind of, for those in the United States and Canada who are listening to us, I kind of look at it like the Miami Heat, when LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh all came to Miami, and you had the sort of the first ever, in a sense, super team, right, in the NBA.
Right. Yep.
And I kind of look at it like that, Adam. Because it's like you've got Charles Leclerc, who's your Dwayne Wade. You've got Lewis Hamilton, who's your LeBron James, and your Chris Bosh is, Adrian Newey, right?
Yeah, I like that. Although
it's kind of how I look at it.
A lot of people, the way they look at Adrian Newey is he's LeBron James, because he's that important, right? He's so good,
very much so.
So this will all, I'm sure, play out. I wonder if Red Bull's doing what they can to try to keep him right now, because I think a lot of this hinges on a lot of keeping Max Verstappen has to do with keeping Adrian Newey. And what's been interesting is that Christian Horner and Adrian Newey have been very, very close for 15, 16 years, and apparently that relationship has fractured. And it's due to this investigation. And there's just so much that we don't know, Tim, right?
Yes,
like there's so much that's smoke and mirrors, things that are alluded to, but not really any structured details. But from what, report after report after report says, their relationship has changed forever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are similar conversations that I've heard as well. But again, like, nothing is officially on the record. Once we get, let's say, once Adrian Newey departs Red Bull Racing, Adam, there's 2 other sort of conversations that I think are going to start happening. It's who goes after Pierre Vacher, and what happens with Max Verstappen. Yeah, because I think if you lose Adrian Newey,
Pierre Vacher's got to be the guy that takes over.
But the thing is, Adam, is like, who's going to come for him, right? It's the Piranha Club, man, and they're circling the team, and they're going to start taking body parts, right?
Yep.
Left, right, and center, and that team could get pulled apart, right? We just don't know. But Pierre Vacher is like a crucial component to that team. He is a huge, huge part to that team. And I wouldn't be surprised that if whoever ends up getting Adrian Newey doesn't then go after Pierre Vacher.
Wow.
Like aggressively.
Wow. So bring them together.
Aggressively goes after him. But maybe not to put them together. Maybe it's, let's say hypothetically, Ferrari gets Adrian Newey, then I would say Aston Martin goes after Pierre Vacher.
I see what you're saying.
Or Mercedes goes after him. Like I think there's someone else who's going to be coming in, and that's when you're really going to be in trouble with losing Max Verstappen.
There were some rumors that Christian Horner may have tried to sideline Adrian Newey and keep him on a supercar or a hypercar project. What do you know about that?
Yeah, the RB17, I believe, is what it's called, and yeah, it is a hypercar project that they've been working on, and from my understanding, it sounds like Christian really wanted Adrian to work on that project exclusively. Maybe not so much a part of the race team as much anymore, but more so looking after that RB17 project was really important to them. But I just don't think that Newey wanted to just do that, right? He's an extremely talented guy. He can do so many different things. It's you design another team to put that thing together, and then he can just oversee it, something similar to what he's doing with Red Bull Racing.
Right. Okay.
But Adam, I just got to say for Max, like I just got to look.
Say
if Newey goes, man, there's a 50-50 chance that guy's gone in 2026, and that team could be Mercedes, you know?
Well, and apparently, and we'll tie this into you going to Miami in a second here, which I'm so jealous of, as it's cold and cloudy here and typical April in Ontario. There is supposedly a scheduled meeting between the Max Verstappen camp and Mercedes in Miami this weekend. What can you tell me about it?
It's news to me, buddy, but I'm going to be hanging out. So
funny.
I know where I'm going to be hanging around. I'm going to be hanging around.
You should just honestly just hang outside of the Mercedes doors, just like, all right. Because, we've seen Yas and Toto pretty publicly in the first weekend or two, hanging out, chatting. There's flirtation happening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, seeing Yas and Toto meet up in Bahrain, that's where everything sort of kicked off. But for Toto, this is a driver he's tried to get a long time ago. He just never had a seat to put him in. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's like I said, Piranha Club, man. I think he smells some blood in the water. And so he's going to try and put together whatever he can, I think, to try and get him. He wants Max. He does. And I think, if there's a possibility he can wheel him in for 2026, Adam, I see him doing it. It's Toto, man. He would definitely go out and get after it. That's for sure.
If anyone can do it, it's Toto.
Yeah.
So you're heading down to Miami. It's the third annual Miami Grand Prix. They seem to have a lot more. The first year everybody was sort of really, really excited, but of course there was some new changes, like the fake water and the fake yachts and which was fun. That's very America. I love it. I love that Americans bring out the show. And I know that some racing purists are like, well, this isn't at a track and I'm not sitting in the mud. But that's not glamorous to a wider world, right? Not everybody wants to smell like gasoline and walk the pit. Sometimes people want to be there and be a part of the show, and that's what America's so good at. If you want that experience, Spa is waiting for you later on in the calendar. And Tim, I want to know from you, what are you most looking forward to now? Having attended this race a couple of times, what are the things that when you're on the ground, you go, man, I love this. It's so unique to Miami.
I like Miami. I'm not a Florida guy.
You're not a Florida man?
No, but I enjoy I do enjoy Miami. I enjoy the food culture there. I enjoy the coffee a lot. Going to the track there is, I don't know. It's just fun. They do a really good job of making sure that anyone who comes to the event has a great time, no matter what you're doing. And one of my, I guess, when they moved the paddock into the football stadium inside, that was really cool, man. It is awesome, dude. Huh? It is so cool, man. Because fans can actually, get a general admission ticket, and at least they could last year, and go into the stadium, and they can actually see the paddock, because that's now the paddock inside the stadium there. And, you could hear people yelling, you can hear people cheering, chanting, singing, and that's a different sort of vibe than what you get at other Grand Prix, because usually the paddock is really closed off, Adam, and like, general admission ticket holder can't really get on the outside to see what's going on the inside. But for Miami, you can, and it's definitely worth it. It's a ton of fun. So like I always enjoy, like, because where our media center is it's in the Dolphin Stadium. It's in the same media center where whenever the Dolphins play a home game, reporters show up. We're in the same spot that they are in. Now, so getting down to the paddock is a bit of a pain in the ass, but once you get down there, man, it's so cool, dude. Like, it's like you walk into the field and like people are just like chanting and singing and whatever. It's a good time, and if you're having a rough go of it, it can really turn your day around real quickly. As for the track, I mean, track's pretty cool. I am glad they haven't, and we'll see what they do this year, but I'm glad they haven't changed the chicane, the really slow, fiddly chicane that kind of goes uphill and over a few bumps before the long back straightaway, before the hairpin there. I'm so glad that they left that on the calendar last year, because it's that different sort of take on it, right? Like that's its signature, man. It's like this really dumb, slow little fiddly corner, but it's awesome and I love it. And so, yeah, I mean, there is a lot about this race that I do enjoy. And when they first signed up to do it, Adam, I thought this is going to be a disaster. And then when I got there, I think we did Thursday media day, and a friend of mine was doing Pirelli hot laps, and he came in and I was talking to him, and he's like, dude, the track is getting pulled up. I'm like, what do you mean it's getting pulled up? He's like, the track's like coming apart. I'm like, it's coming apart already? You guys are driving like road cars on that thing. I'm like, look what's going to happen when F1 cars get out there. And so for that first year, when it came to that pavement, that was the only real issue with the entire event. That was the only real issue. And like ever since, man, it's been a good time.
And they repaved it.
Yep. Fully repaved, different type of surface, all that kind of stuff. So it's a fun event. So those who are listening, if you're able to ever come over and do Miami, it's a great one. And so is Texas, man. So is Vegas. Like Vegas Vegas is just on another level. Like,
it's just so much fun, huh?
Oh my God, dude.
Oh, I'm jealous.
It was a lot of fun.
I'm so jealous. Well, this is going to be fun. So the next time you and I talk, you'll be in your hotel room, which I'm very excited about. You better have a good view. I'm going to need to see a good view, and you're going to have to show us your view, at least so we feel like we're there. All right, Tim? Does that sound good?
I'll do my best, buddy.
Okay. Now,
sounds good to me.
The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap here, and there's always extra stuff to talk about, we just never have enough, is the cutthroat nature of racing. And how tough it is to make it and keep it. And this extends beyond Formula One. Big news out of Arrow McLaren today with one of their drivers from Arrow McLaren from Indy. Go ahead, Tim. Tell us what happened. Yeah,
David Malukas getting let go from his deal. Didn't even get to drive a race for the team when he's been signed to them since the end of last season. Just a shame, really. I mean, David had a wrist injury from a mountain bike accident that he had, I believe it was in February, and he just hasn't really recovered from it. It was a pretty serious injury, it's a pretty serious break, and for the past 4 races, they've had Callum Idlott in the seat twice, and they've had Theo Pourchaire in the seat twice. And I think David just knew that he wasn't going to be able to go for the month of May. And obviously, like, the month of May is a huge component to IndyCar. It's a huge component to every sponsor that participates with all of these teams, including Arrow McLaren. And not to have your full-time driver being able to sit in the seat to compete in the month of May, I think you have to cut your losses, see how he's feeling next year, and if there is space, bring him back.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing you can do. It's a fair thing to do at the end of the day. And then I think they go with Callum Ilott. Now, whether or not that happens or not, Ilott has he has WEC engagements, and so he's got a pretty full calendar as it is. And Theo Pourchaire, he's always got his reserve driver duties for Sauber. Plus, he's got the Super Formula Championship that he's racing in at the same time, and he's pretty committed to both. And so it's going to be difficult to see who they're going to be able to get out of what deals and put them in the IndyCar full time. But I think like Ilott would probably be the smart way to go for now. Like, I really liked what Pourchaire did. He was incredible. A super young talent, Formula 2 champion, obviously. And
Ilott had some pretty good success in Formula 2 as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if he won
great.
It, but yeah,
Ilott's great. And it's just a shame what happened with David. It shows you, Adam, just how like when you get like a wrist injury like that, like broken bone, fracture, anything, like just how long it can take some people's bodies to recover. Like, remember when Lance Stroll had his, like, I think he got really lucky with his recovery. Like, I think where his fractures were, allowed him to maybe make those recoveries faster. But I think that the help he got off the track from his trainer, from his physiotherapist, from everyone who helped him trying to recover from that was huge. But the thing with David is that his is just not he's just not recovering well from it.
Yeah,
it's just not.
Yeah, and it's hard. No power steering.
None.
Hard to drive a car with no power steering on a broken wrist. It just really is. So we wish him the best, and that's how tough. That's the sport. It's a real tough sport. But I have a feeling that he's the type of driver that will bet on himself and turn it around and be ready to go for next season. Tim, do you leave for Miami tomorrow or Wednesday?
Wednesday, buddy.
Okay.
I get to go to the F1 exhibition tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. Oh, in Toronto. That's awesome. Okay, that'll be fun. Well, enjoy that, and we will talk to you Thursday in Miami.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it, dude.